Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Tasting Room. I thought I'd do something a little bit different this week. We're going to try to do an About Whiskey series. So the first style of whiskey we're going to be talking about is one that's made right here in the U.S. and can only be made in the U.S. This is bourbon whiskey. A lot of people think bourbon can only be made in Kentucky. That's actually not true. 95% of the bourbons do come from Kentucky, but a bourbon can be made anywhere. There's some strict regulations for a whiskey to be able to be called bourbon, but does not have to come from Kentucky. I was turned on to bourbon many years ago, and I confess I don't really recall what my first bourbon was. Or even really exactly when I started drinking it, but now after a number of years of sampling whiskeys from all the corners of the world, I understand why people like bourbon. It's a good solid flavor profile. See, bourbon is a wonderful gateway whiskey. Now, for someone who's just starting to get into their whiskeys, a lot of us when we were younger, we drink mixed drinks and things with a little bit more sweetness to kind of make the alcohol a little bit more palatable. Well, bourbon does have a distinct sweetness, and the reason being, or at least one of the reasons, it's made with a bourbon has to be, in order to be called bourbon, it has to be made with at least 51% corn, and that grain by nature makes the whiskey a little bit sweeter. Another really cool thing about bourbon is you always know exactly what you're getting with a bourbon. Some distilleries may hold their specific mash bill a secret, but it has to have at least 51% corn. But the really awesome thing is there can be no additives in bourbon. There's no added flavors. There's no added caramel coloring. A lot of like cognacs or even other whiskeys from other parts of the world, they'll add that caramel color to give the illusion that it's been aged for a little bit longer than it actually has been. A bourbon gets 100% of its color from the barrel that it's been aged in. When you distill a spirit, it's clear. Looks like water. Bourbon gets aged in brand new charred oak barrels, so they haven't been used before. They can't be used again for a bourbon after they're done. A lot of bourbon distilleries, they'll send their used barrels after they've used them their one time. They'll send them overseas to Ireland, to Scotland, so they can be used. European whiskeys like that will use ex-bourbon casks to get the flavor from the bourbon into their whiskeys by aging their whiskeys in the ex-bourbon casks. But a bourbon is always a brand new barrel, a brand new charred white oak. It's always the same. And over 70% of the flavor in a bourbon is coming from that barrel, and there's a lot of those sweeter notes that come specifically from that barrel. Honeyed notes, there are vanilla notes, all coming from that barrel. So there's so many similarities between all of the bourbons that that you can find around the United States of America. In the mash bill, that's again, it's got to be at least 51% corn. So over half of the whiskey is corn. The secondary grain's either going to be rye or it's going to be wheat, and that does affect the flavor quite a bit. But and then there's going to be a little bit of malted barley for the enzymes. It's always distilled at no more than 160 proof. It's always cut with pure, fresh, clean water, not flavored with anything. It's introduced to the barrel at no more than 125 proof. All of these similarities. So why are some bourbons, $150, and why are some $10? What makes the difference? There's such a variety of bourbons, and it's not just I've come to learn through my years of collecting all of these whiskeys and even filming here with you guys, I've come to learn that you know, it doesn't have to be a 20-year-old whiskey to be a very good whiskey. Very Old Barton here, you know, was one that actually I turned my girlfriend onto bourbon with. You know, she had never had a bourbon before, and you know, I think in years past she drank maybe one of the generic scotches like a Glenfiddich or a Glenlivet, and you know, I think the first bourbon I ever gave her was a Larceny. The next one was when I was walking through the liquor store one day, and just looking for something new, something different, just, you know, because that's what I do. And I was talking to the guy to the guy who was stocking the shelves, and he told me about, oh man, you gotta try Very Old Barton. I was like, really? I looked down and it was a $13 bottle of whiskey. $13. Are you kidding me? That's gotta be just rot gut, right? But I tried it, and wow. I mean, this is, you know, quickly became my go-to table whiskey until, of course, you know, now, you know, everybody found out about it, and now you can't find it anymore. but they make a couple different varieties, a couple of different proofs, which can also, you know, affect the variety of the whiskey that you're getting, how much water they use to cut it. You know, how long it's aged. This particular Very Old Barton here was well, no, actually, they always kept that number 6 up there. It used to be aged for no less than 6 years, but it's not. They keep the number 6 up there now, but it doesn't. They don't have the official age statement on the bottle anymore. A lot of whiskeys are going away from putting an age statement on the bottle because it doesn't. You know, it can be a younger whiskey and still be very, very good. You know, there are a couple of things that affect it. You know, where it's aged in the rickhouse. Is it aged closer to the ground where there's less variation of temperature? Is it aged, you know, way up high in the rickhouse, somewhere in the middle? So one of the reasons Kentucky is, you know, such a huge bourbon industry is because they have really hot summers, really hot days, really cold nights, cold winters. There's a lot of variation in temperature, a lot of exercising of the barrel. The whiskey's going into the wood, out of the wood, you know, gathering up all that flavor. I think I mentioned before, whiskey gets 70% of its flavor just from the barrel. Anyway, the point is there's something out there for everyone, especially in bourbon. You know, with all the similarities in the distilling process and the process of making bourbon, there's so much variation, and you got to find one that speaks to you. So keep trying. Again, my girlfriend, I had her try a couple of different whiskeys, and once she found Very Old Barton, you know, she never really thought of herself as a whiskey drinker before. Once she found Very Old Barton, just completely turned her on to a whole new world. You know, one of my buddies the other day, a guy I had met a couple of years ago, you know, he even told me that he just started watching my videos as kind of a novelty thing, and you know, he decided he wanted to start trying different whiskeys. And again, you know, another person never really thought much of whiskey, never really drank a whole lot. He found Knob Creek, which is, you know, a good solid middle of the road whiskey. You know, it's one of your nice mainstream ones, but I mean, he absolutely loves it. You know, it's the one that he found. It's the one that spoke to him, and you know, it's his favorite. And again, he told me, turned him on to a whole new world of whiskeys, bourbon. So again, the point is, it's a perfect gateway whiskey, bourbon. You know, it helps you appreciate the flavors that are hidden within this magical brown elixir here, and you gain an appreciation. You gain you figure out which ones you really like. You know, start sitting with them. I mean, when I get a new whiskey, I'll pour it into a glass, and I'll sit there and I'll nose the whiskey for a good 20 minutes before I even taste it. See what develops on the nose. See what kind of aromas you can pick out. Look for those honeys. Look for chocolate. Look for vanilla. Look for nuttiness. you know, start to try to pick out those flavor profiles that you recognize in there, and then taste the whiskey. Let it sit in your mouth for a little while. Analyze it. Is it sweet? Are there, do you taste the honeys? Do you taste the vanillas from the oak? Do you taste any kind of, any spices? Anything in particular you can identify? And once you've tried a few, and you figured out which ones you like, write me a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know which whiskeys speak to you. Any have I tried? Have you, did I rate something really highly that you thought was awful? Did I rate something terribly that you thought was, the best thing ever? I mean, that's the beauty of whiskey. It speaks to everybody a little bit differently. Everybody gets a little bit, something a little bit different out of every glass. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a little bit better understanding of what a bourbon is now and why people drink it, and maybe about my relationship with bourbon too, and why I enjoy it and why I recommend other people try it too. So thanks again for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, please hit that button and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a member, and I hope to see you again next week right here on The Tasting Room.